May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be aligned with your love, O God, our strength, our courage, and our freedom. Amen. We human beings live by the stories we tell ourselves and one another. The healthier the story, the healthier the life. We are storied species. Healthy Christianity has a story. It lives a wonderful, life-giving story that begins in the nighttime and it moves toward the daylight. Begins with an individual peasant of one religion and moves toward including everyone in every religion and even those without religion. It begins in the nighttime of Roman occupation and soul-crushing poverty. And it moves toward liberation and a sufficiency for all. Our story, when we understand it in a healthy way, begins in scarcity and moves toward abundance. It starts in love, moves in and out of fear, and culminates in great love. And that story begins again today with the first Sunday of Advent. Today is Reset Sunday, Reboot Sunday, the first day of the liturgical year. Advent comes from a Latin word meaning to come. Advent begins in the darkest time of the calendar year. As the days get shorter and the nights get longer, we light more and more candles on the Advent wreath until on Christmas Eve, near the longest night of the year, this room is filled with candles, ablaze out of our trust and hope that when you and I live in community, the light will always overcome the night, no matter how bleak the night is. As Dr. King said, it is in the darkest of the night that you can finally see the stars. So, welcome to this first day of the new telling of our story. May our retelling it and living it be healthier than any time before. Now, each of the 4 Sundays in Advent have a word associated with them. Today's gospel shows that the word for today is be alert, stay awake, be aware, be conscious, see, be watchful, pay attention. Jesus uses that word and phrase 6 times in the story just read. The more I live into this story that we start telling anew today, and the more I try to sort out its distortions from the dynamics of the story that give life, not only to me but to everyone and to the planet, the more I understand how important paying attention is. For instance, our faith community, All Saints Church Pasadena, is in a heightened state of awareness, which is one of the essentials of discernment as we begin the search process of finding our new rector. And my wife and I are in a heightened state of paying attention as we try on where we will live after I retire in May of 2016. We returned from Thanksgiving in Birmingham, Alabama last night, where our daughter was trying to make us pay attention to the benefits of living in Birmingham. And our son was trying to do the same about the benefits of New Orleans. And my brother was asking us to pay attention to the advantages of Atlanta. And when Hope and I got to our gate at the airport terminal to return home yesterday afternoon, What she and I were really paying attention to was how we were feeling as we tried on each scenario. So the discernment continues, and at the heart of it is paying attention. Now, on this Sunday, and those of you who've heard me preach over and over and over again, from Advent 1 to Advent 1 to Advent 1, my mind always goes to my learning from a particular interview that Bill Moyers once had with Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen several years ago. He produced a video series and an accompanying book called Healing and the Mind. Healing and the Mind. And Dr. Remen said that in the globe's religions, beneath all the differences in theology and doctrine, all spiritual paths have the same 4 steps. Show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't be attached to the results. And there are parishioners in this church who tell me that they repeat this at the supper table every day, particularly when they want to be controlling and attached to the results. So in reflecting on the interplay of life and illness, Dr. Remen has been quite ill herself, and now she's a healer of physicians. In the interplay of life, illness, healing, and death in her own life and in the life of her patients, Dr. Remen said, "My sense is that the worst thing that happens in life is not death. The worst thing is missing your own life." She shared those universal steps: show up, pay attention, tell the truth, don't be attached to the results, and then said, "I think the great danger in life is not showing up and not paying attention." Richard Rohr, our friend, has said, "You cannot heal what you do not first acknowledge." He says, "If you do not transform your pain, you will always transmit your pain onto somebody else." As we forge alliances across religions here at All Saints, it's interesting to me to learn that being awake is not only our theme today in the Christian story, it is an important theme in every world religion. The Buddha literally was the one who was truly awake. And according to the most ancient Buddhist tradition, this man who through disciplined meditation actually was able to see into the reality, the heart of reality, and woke up. It is said that after his enlightenment, the Buddha's face shone, and he was stopped on the road and asked, "Are you a god or a magician?" The Buddha said, "I am not a god, nor am I a magician. I am awake." Our rabbi in residence, Leonard Bierman, once told me that one of his favorite quotations about the importance of being awake or conscious or attentive in life is this: "Ed, if you want your dreams to come true, you have to wake up." The Christian monk Thomas Merton wrote, "The spiritual life and the moral life are first of all a matter of keeping awake." So, my friends, paying attention is not just a word for Advent. Paying attention is a word Advent teaches us as important for every day of our lives. You see, these liturgical seasons are not just for their period of time. Advent is this huge mystery about being awake and alert while you're waiting for the embodiment of love, and we just put it on a small stage of 4 weeks. Lent is a great mystery that we just pack into 40 days. Easter is this marvelous, amazing thing about new life. We pack it into 6 weeks. Christmas, the embodiment of love, we pack it into 12 days. But they're all lifetime mysteries to live into. And Advent is being alert for the coming of the Christ, or the embodiment of love, and it's crucial every moment of every day. And the words of Buddha are really the words of Jesus. I am awake. And they are the words for every follower. You and I are called to say in life, every day, every moment, I am awake and I am paying attention to life. Now, to what does Advent pay attention? Advent pays attention first to what is going on in the darkness, so that the hope of the light can come into whatever is dark in our lives, communally, and in your life personally. If we are to pay attention to what's in the dark, then this morning, I want us to speak of Ferguson, Missouri. For what happened there Monday night is a symbol for us all. As you know, the grand jury did not indict the police officer who shot Michael Brown dead in August and left him on the street for 4.5 hours in the August sun. The grand jury proceeding, all grand jury proceedings take place in secret, and in this instance took several months. And what appears to have happened is that the prosecuting attorney chose to review all the evidence in this secret proceeding rather than to bring the officer to a public trial. Citizens in Ferguson, in St. Louis, in Baltimore, in New York City, Los Angeles, Pasadena, and elsewhere have been carrying on protests all week. Many of the protests have unfortunately resulted in destruction and looting, but most have been nonviolent and, to my way of thinking, full of anger that is both appropriate and righteous. In all my reading this week, I've been moved by 3 ideas I want to share with you. They have as their common thread the call to wake up and pay attention to this nightmare in which many live every day and which is once again being brought to the American consciousness. The first idea is from Peter Beinart, an important public intellectual who lives in New York City. He said, the challenge to all of us is to put aside our denial, put aside our confusion, maybe even our fury, long enough to investigate the different experiences that might lead an African American in Ferguson or in Pasadena or in Los Angeles to loathe the police. Moving the conversation forward requires focusing less on people's conclusion and more on the life events that produce them. Those life events of getting stopped by the police can be vastly different depending on whether you're white or you're black. Do not judge, says the Talmud, unless you have been put in the other person's place. The point is not that judgment is wrong. It's that whenever possible, we should base our judgments on intimate knowledge. Or to quote one of our wonderful Rector's Forum speakers last year, Brian Stevenson, we need to know about proximity. We need to put ourselves into the place of people for whom the rule of law is not lawful. If you and I are going to pay attention on this first Sunday of Advent and for the rest of our lives, we need intimate knowledge. We need proximate knowledge that the rule of law is very different for citizens of different races in our nation. Quote 2, I'm here now going to borrow the words of my friend, who is the university preacher at Harvard University, Professor Jonathan Walton, who is also African American. He wrote this week, "The American justice system has proven time and again that if you are a person of color and or poor in this country, your life does not matter as much. All one has to do is to be suspicious and appear out of place, which is the definition of being poor and of color in our country. And state-induced violence will always receive the benefit of the doubt. There is great distrust of America's justice system about the rule of law. For too many people of color, the rule of law appears to condone shooting 12 bullets at an unarmed teenager for the crime of jaywalking. The rule of law takes the form of an officer intended to protect and serve, referring to Michael Brown as it and demon in his grand jury testimony. And the rule of law calls for peace while clad in paramilitary gear, tossing tear gas into nonviolent crowds. He continues, white supremacy is a logic through which social systems are implemented. White supremacy is a logic that regards white life as more valuable than non-white life and equates whiteness with de facto innocence while imbuing blackness with presumed guilt. The reality is that in Ferguson, the city's police force is around 6% African American when the population in Ferguson exceeds 70%. And there is an allowing of the shooting of an unarmed teenager and allowing his body to lay on the street for 4.5 hours. He concludes, America must come to realize that protests, public outrage, and even rioting do not emerge out of thin air. Millions of people are not hallucinating. There are conditions in our society that terrorize and dehumanize people of color and the poor every day. Thus, until America wakes up and pays attention, his use of these Advent words, until America wakes up and pays attention, we will be right back here in a few months in another city. Dr. King was correct that a riot is the language of the unheard. Right now, the people of Ferguson are speaking. Will America listen? My third point and last. Our rabbi in residence, Rabbi Bierman, was quoted in the Los Angeles Times this week saying this, "In the end, this is what matters, care and love. Our world needs troubled people, men and women who care, who are not ashamed to be sensitive and tender, who can resist all those, both friends and enemies, who seek to prevent us from seeing the utter uniqueness and irreplaceability of our own and others' souls. At the heart of our story, which we begin again today, my friends, is the utter uniqueness and irreplaceability of your soul, of my soul, and the soul of everyone else. The story we have begun this morning says that if you and I pay attention in community, help is on the way. Divine help is ours. You can behold your God as the angels sing on Christmas Eve, full of grace and hope and healing, a God whose other word is Emmanuel, God with us, God for us, whose other word is embodied love. That God is coming to communities like this one, who are awake for solutions and truth and justice for all. And we must pay attention. Amen.